Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's a pleasure to take part in this debate. But let's just travel back in time a moment to those halcyon days for the Labour Party, so confidently predicting victory in the election, so far ahead in the opinion polls, and so clear on the prospectus that they lay before the British people. They had got a fully funded, fully costed programme. When the now Chancellor was challenged about whether she knew the full insight into the public finances, she assured the interviewer, if I recall correctly, Madam Deputy Speaker, absolutely that she did. And therefore, people could rely on the cast iron promise that all those members opposite stood on, that they wouldn't be raising national insurance, they wouldn't be raising income tax, they would protect farmers, and they would not cut pensioners' benefits. That was the promise. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's better than that. It's not just that they weren't going to bring in all these taxes, they were going to make growth. Their number one mission for a mission-led government. So for those who feared a return to the sort of socialist, job-destroying, enterprise-wrecking past, they could be reassured. This was a moderate party that had put the Right Honourable Member for Islington North well behind. No matter how many of their members had said he was a great friend and would make a great Prime Minister, they had changed their mind. There was a moderate promise. And it was in that guise, not only, I would say to the House, that members of the public were brought to believe in the Labour mission and what they could bring for the country. But imagine the members opposite. The people who were selected for the Labour Party, who came in, not into Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, but into this Labour Party of enterprise, of protecting workers, of encouraging a low-tax system, but doing so in a way which nonetheless would prioritise the health care system, special educational needs children, and the like. That was the promise. And it beguiled not just many people in the country, not that many, as only 34% of people did actually vote Labour, but nonetheless enough. But imagine what it is like, and I say this to members on this side of the House, I say, imagine what it was like to come in, to be part of that fantastic crew, hundreds and hundreds of Labour MPs to come in this place to deliver that manifesto, Madam Deputy Speaker. And where are we now? At the historic second reading of the finance bill of the central policy measures of this new government. Where are they? They have been humiliated in the budget debate as one after another repeated their rote words. It was the most intellectually empty budget debate I've ever taken part in, as I listened to member after member opposite trot out their 14 years of chaos, their 22 billion black hole. So it would be entirely wrong for me, Madam Deputy Speaker, given how few members there are on the opposite side of this chamber prepared to defend this budget, if I didn't now give way to one of them. I give way to the Honourable Lady.
Thank you very much to the Honourable Member for finally giving way. I wonder if he might also use the opportunity to reflect on the economic record of the past government, which saw the highest interest rates and inflation through the roof, which affected people's pockets and their ability to be able to get on in life. Will he also perhaps reflect on the fact that his party lost the election, and perhaps he might show some humility?
Well, I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady. I mean, I'm happy to do so, although it is worth pointing out that we are supposed to reflect today on the actual proposals put forward by the government of which she is now a member. But she's right to highlight our economic record, and it doesn't, I don't think we on this side, I've got criticism of this side, I don't think we do enough to talk about it. Because who grew but from 2010 to 2024? Which economies in Europe grew most? Was it Germany or the UK? Oh, it was the UK. Was it France or the UK? Oh, no, it was the UK. Which country in Europe created 4 million more jobs, took the horrible scar of youth unemployment, which was a permanent feature, even in the good years prior to the crash, for those interested in the history of employment, stayed horribly high with that long-term scarring impact on young people. The Labour government, all that was turned around. People who were paying tax at $6,500 when Labour left power, that was lifted to 12,500. So they may be decrying and disowning their part in the coalition, but the Liberal Democrats should have some pride of what we were able to do together. We inherited an economic basket case. We brought discipline back, but while we were fixing the foundations, we didn't lose sight of the fact that we knew where the wealth comes from. It comes from the private sector, not the public sector. You must ensure it's those small shops, it's those restaurants, it's all those other businesses that this country relies on for its wealth. And one by one, this budget goes down and damages each and every one of them. It's looked around for targets, the broad shoulders for the socialist envy to vent itself on. What better than these landowners? So it focuses on people about practically, I would have thought, I'm not an expert on every area of economic life of this country, but if you looked across the entire economy and you tried to find people in private enterprise using their own assets, where else would people have millions of pounds in assets and be prepared to get a 1% return on it, keep that up year after year, simply in order to feed the nation as part of a compact between government, between the whole of this country and those people, prepared to do that and feed us while asking so little in return? Of all the groups in this society to attacking farmers is one of the most retrograde and regrettable. I give way to my honourable friend.
I thank my right honourable friend for giving way. As he knows, I worked for a charity for 6 years, or a decade, as the Chancellor of the Exchequer likes to call it. Would he like to reflect on the damage done to charities by the budget of this government? Charities who are in a squeeze, and the current government has squeezed further through its decisions, both employment rights and also through taxation in the budget.
Well, I thank my honourable friend. We have a kind of socialist envy and attack on misguided targets from children with special educational needs in private schools are going to be pulled out mid-year because their families can't afford it. That's not the intent. That's not what not only did they want to stand on an honest prospectus, but that's not, I'm sure, what honourable members opposite wanted, but that's what's happening. It is exactly what is happening to those people. But my honourable friend is right to point out that it's not just about having a class-based assault on people who don't deserve to be assaulted. It's also sheer ineptitude. And you look at the 22 billion for the NHS. Why so little for social care? Surely even members opposite, however green and new to the House, must be aware that the NHS depends on social care system, and yet it has an increase because of NICs and the minimum wage, costs going up by around 2.5 billion, and it's getting 600 million. So they are going to be affected. Hospices are being affected. Small charities are being affected.
I'd just like to remind the right honourable gentleman, and indeed all other honourable members, that this is specifically the Finance Bill second reading. We are not having a general debate on the budget.
I'm extremely grateful to you, Madam Deputy Speaker, for your guidance, and I will try not to refer too much to the NIC's impact because we will have that opportunity next Tuesday. But nonetheless, my honourable friend is right to talk about the impact of this budget overall and the fact that hospices, charities. I met with HICA, which is a large provider, not-for-profit provider of social care homes and in-home care. Met with the chief executive yesterday. It's a brilliant organisation. It has made real progress over the last few years, finally managed to make a surplus last year so that it can pay its staff more than the minimum wage, so it can invest in its stock. Now it is facing a £3.5 million on their 40 million turnover impact as a result of this budget and this finance bill. Not only farmers, Madam Deputy Speaker, we've already touched on in the debate oil and gas, and it's, as the former energy minister, the net zero minister, it always struck me as absurd to be looking at the production of oil and gas rather than the consumption. It's the consumption that's the problem. We must change our factories, our vehicles, our buildings, so they no longer need oil and gas if we're to move away from them. Attacking the production, when in fact it's driven by demand, is the wrong end. And in this case, we have the Labour government putting up the EPL in this measure on top of refusing to issue new licences. And the net effect of this, notwithstanding the Liberal Democrats saying that they support this policy, I don't know why or how they can do so, because I'll give way to the Honourable Lady in a moment, but what the effect it has is it doesn't make the slightest difference to how much we consume, but it means we import more from abroad. And those imports have in the case of LNG 4 times higher the embedded emissions of domestically produced product. So you're going to bring it in from places which are less careful than we are in the production of it. You're going to lose tens of thousands of jobs, £13 billion of tax revenue, and you're going to lose the engineering expertise and the companies that you need for the transition. There is literally no way to make this make sense, and I hope the Honourable Lady will now do a U-turn and see the logic of this argument.
I will resist that invitation. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Does the honourable gentleman understand the nature of a windfall tax, which is a windfall tax raises money on the windfall that sector was not expecting? We know the big oil and gas giants set their investment plans based on the profits that they were expecting, but clearly they raised a lot more money because of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and windfall taxes have been placed on those big oil and gas giants for the profits over and above what they were expecting to receive.
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady. She didn't actually refer to what the measure here. I know it's the Liberal Democrat policy to have a windfall tax on anyone who doesn't sound popular, big banks, big tech, oil and gas. That's their answer to anyone who says, how would you do it? They trot that out and they lose not a single vote, because it's the very definition of not taking a tough choice to just suggest there's easy money. The measure here, which the Honourable Lady specifically said she supported, is not a windfall tax. It is a further tax in tandem with the removal of any new licences, which effectively destroys investment in the North Sea. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, I would point to Apache, who are saying they're looking to withdraw by 2029, 500 jobs, Harbour, JAPEX, Chevron, just to name a few. They're pulling out. There is no saving environmentally, and there's all that tax, all that jobs, and all that expertise, exactly what we need for carbon capture, for hydrogen, for the green economy. It is utterly insane. And the reason I can believe that there are so few Labour members opposite, and I watched them in the budget coming in full of cherry-cheeked enthusiasm, reading out their whip-prepared rote remarks about the disaster left behind, which, as we know, was the fastest-growing economy in the G7, inflation at target, debt coming down, the economy coming up. And they are not all mad socialist loons, Madam Deputy Speaker. And day by day, you can see the spirit. You can see it in the tea room. You can meet them in the corridors as they realise that the front bench that they have, that the deceit that was practised not only on the people in their name, but actually on them, is coming home to roost. And that if you pour all the money, the £22 billion into the NHS, is in the next year, and then we're to believe, and it's in these figures, we're then to believe that public services are going to rise by, 1.3%, 1.4%? Is it for the rest of the period up to the next general election? Is that credible? It isn't credible, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think honourable members opposite know that, and that is why they are signalled by their absence, as they realise, as we do, that this finance bill and that budget is ruinous for this country, and my right honourable friend was absolutely right to say, as he did, that it makes this country more vulnerable to the shocks which may and most likely will come, and it will be that party opposite which owns the mistakes which are being sown today.